Hello and welcome to Ditch Witch Diaries. We are doing trees and we are going to start our first tree for the day, and Raven is going to take us away.
Awesome. All right, so we are doing magnolia tree today. I don't know why. I just knew I wanted to do magnolia, I think because they're blooming right now,
Uh-huh.
which is beautiful. Magnolia tree is my second favorite tree after the weeping willow tree.
Nice.
Um, but it does kind of disrupt our ogum discussion. However, they're just
I
so
know
beautiful.
I'm going outside of the Ogham discussion for
Oh,
mine
okay,
as
good,
well.
nice.
So,
So we'll resume it next time.
yes.
Okay, good. So yeah, beautiful. So the family is Magnoliaceae, I'm thinking is how you pronounce that. Obviously the genus is Magnolia. There are 200 to 300 species within the genus. So as we've seen a lot with our trees, there's a lot of species within the genus. Hmm.
Nice. Okay, well, interesting.
So lots of species, but some of the common ones.
Uh-huh.
This thing, there we go. I hate it when that little border pops up and like blocks my text. Okay, so some of the common ones: Southern Magnolia, Star Magnolia, Saucer, Cobus, and Houpu, I think is how you say that. So we'll talk about some of these. So other names for them: Big Laurel, which I hadn't heard of before, but makes sense when you look at the leaves. Bull Bay, Yulan, Kobushi, I think. Ancient Flower, Primitive Flower, and Southern Bell Tree are all names for our beautiful magnolia. Now, some like genus characteristics. So these are true of all of the species. The flowers are really large. They're very showy. Typically, there's like one species where they're less showy, but still pretty showy. Hold on, let me put you down here. There we go. The petals and the sepals, I think is how you say that, are not distinct. And so the sepal is this little part down here. It's very clear on like roses. It's like the little tiny green
Yes.
little triangles. So, but they're not distinct, which is pretty unique. Not a lot of flowers have them like together. And when they are together, they're called tepals. So tepals is when you can't distinguish. So we have the sepal here, which is separating from the petals, but on magnolia flowers, the outer leaves are
The
the
sepal.
like sepals. And so when that happens, they're called tepals. So usually arranged in a spiral pattern, pollinated primarily by beetles, not bees, which is pretty cool. We'll talk about that more later. The leaves are pretty simple. The trees can be deciduous or evergreen depending on the species, mostly deciduous, but some evergreens. And then the leaves are often pretty thick and leathery, especially one species that we'll talk about. So then the fruit and the seeds, the like seed pods are like a cone. I love the look of magnolia seed pods. I don't know why they are so weird. They look so alien, but they're so cool. I like them.
I know.
And the seeds are bright red or orange, and they kind of like are in this part when it's closed up, and then as the seeds ripen, they like burst open, and it looks like this, and then they release all of their seeds, and then afterwards, it looks like this, just no red seeds in there. And they're often pretty, what else? Oh, the trees can either be trees or large shrubs depending on the species. The bark is really smooth and the flower buds are really like soft and fuzzy. So first we're going to talk about the Southern Magnolia. So the Southern Magnolia is the most typical one, at least here in the Pacific Northwest of like Oregon and California. They're not native to here, but they're very, very common in landscaping. This is the one where it's brown on the underside of the leaves and then green on the top. The leaves are also really thick. And then we have the beautiful white flower that pops up. So, native to southeastern US. So, again, not native to our western side, but they are used often. The height is pretty moderate, I guess, like 60 to 80 feet tall, about 40 feet wide. They have the really fragrant flowers. And what else? It is an evergreen. And the this is the iconic like southern tree. There's a lot of references to magnolia in like movies and stuff, even just like briefly, and they're typically pretty southern movies, so it's very ornamental. Then we have the starred magnolia. I actually just saw one of these for the first time like 2 days after I made this presentation, so last week.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, now I can identify it. It's really cool. So it looks very different though. The flowers look different, the leaves look different, but I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a star magnolia. So native to Japan, pretty short. This is a shrub, so 15 to 20 feet tall typically. The flowers are more like a starburst shape, so lots of like thinner petals compared to our southern magnolia, which has
Yeah.
really wide, thick petals. These are really thin and like very floppy. If you've ever held a magnolia petal, it's pretty thick. Like it can
Yeah.
stay straight up
And
easily.
it's huge. Are these
Big.
blooms big too?
These are small, like you could
Oh,
fit the
okay.
whole thing in your hand, like
Okay.
very small and very delicate. And like you can kind of see how it like flops over in this picture,
Yeah.
very like flimsy, but it smells the same. Still that beautiful, like floral magnolia smell. Um, so the blooms for this one come in early spring, sometimes late winter even, so pretty early compared to a lot of other flowers. They're usually white, but they can be a little bit pink, which we'll talk about in a second. And the leaves are, or the tree, I guess I should say, is deciduous. This is one of, so, excuse me, Magnolias as a genus. It's something in my throat.
Oh my goodness. I'll cut this out.
Jesus Christ, I got too
Relieve
excited.
yourself. I'm gonna cut out that whole nightmare about Miranda.
Oh, yeah.
Chip chop, chip chop.
Mm. Also edits today. Okay. So, the I totally forgot what I was. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. So, magnolias as a genus, their flowers tend to bloom a little bit earlier than a lot of other flowers. They're like early spring compared to like mid-spring kind of. But the star magnolias can bloom all like way earlier, even into end of winter. So they are one of the first blooming flowers in plant life, which is pretty rad. We'll tie that into something later. Um, and the leaves, like I said, look very different compared to our southern magnolia. We don't have the brown underside. It just kind of looks like a stereotypical like plant leaf. So then we have the Houpu magnolia, native to China, but especially very like mountain region of China. These get a little bit taller, about 50 feet.
Those
Now,
are rad. Let me just tell you,
yes,
those leaves, the whole thing is just, I am drawn to it.
I haven't seen, have you seen these?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought you were saying like when I saw it, it was, isn't it?
No, right now I'm looking
Yeah,
at it and I
they're
am
so
drawn to it.
beautiful. I love it. My second favorite tree ever. I love magnolia trees. They're just, it's magnolia trees, they like, you know me, I'm not very like girly and super like light and like feminine in a stereotypical way. I'm much more like, I don't know. I don't really think that I'm that way, but Magnolia Tree like calls to the femininity in me. It's like beautiful. Oh, I love it. So with this one, the leaves of the flowers look a little bit similar to our star magnolia, but look at how many layers this has. It's like 2 or 3 layers of petals. This one is more just like one layer, but the shape is similar.
Yeah.
However, the leaves are a little bit thicker, like we see with the southern magnolia.
They hold up. Like you can see
Yes,
them
they
like
hold. Yeah, you can kind of even see them here. Like the red here is indicative of kind of the flower getting older. And so especially when the petals are still young and white,
uh-huh.
they are like straight up. And then something interesting about this is that there's the leaves are really big. You can see this here. They're really, really long. They're like 3 to 4 times the length of the flower itself. So really big. And they tend to kind of like circle around the flower, as you can see here and a little bit here. So really, really massive big leaves. The inner bark is really fragrant, really bitter. And so we'll talk about that again later. Okay, then we have the cobus magnolia. So this one, we're back to like delicate, thin, oblong petals again. Native to Japan and Korea. Height is pretty short, like about 30 to 40 feet. But they can get taller if they're in like perfect ideal conditions. This also blooms pretty early in spring and but not as early as the last one. This is considered more tree-like, less ornamental. Most magnolias as a genus are considered very ornamental. They're very beautiful to look at. They smell amazing. They're just like really nice. But this one a little bit less so. The flowers aren't as like pretty. They don't hold as long. The leaves aren't as green and lush. So less ornamental. But this one, there's a lot of hybrid magnolias, and this is usually one of the bases of a lot of the hybrid trees. Okay, so then we have the Souser. This one, look at the pink here. Look at the how freaking
Wow.
beautiful that is. So this is not a naturally occurring species. This is a hybrid, and the hybrid is a cross between these two, the Magnolia
Wow.
dendrota and the Lily flora. So it's a hybrid between these two, and then we get this one. You can see it's interesting that it's usually white on the inside and pink on the outside.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so beautiful. This one, all most magnolia species, not all of them, but most of them, the flowers bloom before the leaves even come out, which we'll talk about later. This one is deciduous, and this is one of the most commonly planted ornamental magnolias. So magnolia is relatively common, but this is a big one.
Wow.
Yes, so nice. Okay, so some key ecological roles. They act as like a living bridge, it said, between ancient and modern ecosystems,
Uh-huh.
because they have existed for millions and millions of years. And so it's considered one of like the old trees. Now, magnolias are primarily pollinated by beetles, not bees, which I'll talk more about in a second. And the flowers, most of them again are like really thick and sturdy, and so they can stand up to the elements pretty well, chewing insects. They're like lasting. Now, this is why they're pollinated by beetles. So they evolved before bees even existed. So their flowers are structured specifically for beetle pollination because beetles were the pollinators before the king bees, essentially. And so magnolias, that's why their flowers are so like sturdy for most of them. Flowers are sturdy, the pollen is like plentiful, and it's for the beetles to pollinate.
Nice.
This is so there are four of the four trees that whose flowers are structured specifically for this reason, for bee population, because they're around before bees. And that is the Ambriella trichopoda, I guess, which is a member of the star anise family. Water lilies, and then oh no, sorry, this one is the star anise relative. Sorry, the Elysia, I think, which is this one. So
Lucia.
these are the three plus magnolias, the four flowering trees that existed before bees.
Nice.
Yes. Now, fossil records date them back to about like 95 million years ago, so been around for a long time, especially in China, and especially, well, they have been cultivated in China for over 1,000 years. So being cultivated for a really long time. Traditionally planted in temple gardens and like imperial court grounds. And so it's tied to things like womanhood in a way that's graceful and resilient, but not fragile. And we'll come back to that when we talk about more of the history and lore. So this is our history or our lore, our tale of the Magnolia Maidens. So long ago in a quiet village, there lived a group of young women known for their kindness and beauty. They moved through the world gently, tending gardens, caring for their families, living in harmony with the rhythms of the land. One year, war came to their land. The village was overtaken and the maidens were killed by invaders. The land grew silent where laughter once lived. But when spring arrived, something strange happened. Where each maiden had fallen, a tree began to grow. Not slowly, but suddenly, as if the
Huh?
earth itself remembered them. Branches rose bare and reaching, and then, even before any leaves appeared, the trees bloomed. Large pale blossoms opened, white like morning cloth, soft as skin, luminous against the empty branches. And the villagers said the white petals were the spirits of the maidens, that the strength of the branches was the maiden's endurance, and the fact that they bloomed on bare wood with no leaves meant that they did not wait for the world to become safe again. They bloomed anyway, which is so very lovely.
I love that.
So nice. So in Southern folklore, the magnolia tree is known as the witness tree, which we kind of touched on earlier because they have lasted a long time. They've stood through generations of families, they've stood through war, change, societal upheaval, all different kinds of stuff and garbage and beautiful things. They've been around for generations and generations because they've been here so long. And so it said that the tree remembers and that they hold stories in silence. It shows up in a lot of Gothic stories. Now, I haven't really found any where Magnolia is like the sole focus of the story, but they are in a lot of Gothic stories. So here's just a couple: The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner, The Streetcar Named Desire, Tennessee Williams, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Also some writers, Natasha Trethewey, and Dora Weltley. And in the stories, generally speaking, they represent beauty masking decay. So, like the lush fragrance, it smells amazing, it's visually perfect, but it's often used as a sign against like moral decline or complexity. It's also used to represent memory and like haunting in some way, whether being haunted by ghosts or being haunted by ideas or whatever. The trees outliving generations, feeling like they remember, which we just talked about. Or they can also represent fragility versus endurance because the soft petals, but we have the petals are like thick, right? They smell amazing. They're so velvety soft. They feel so nice, but they're strong. They are like they stand upright, erect for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
The wood is also really strong, and so the magnolia tree is used to represent like characters who appear delicate but carry a lot of weight. So medicinally, we do have some medicinal stuff. I didn't even think that there would be, honestly, but we do anti-anxiety, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and um, anxiolytic. I can't remember how to say that, but anti-anxiety. Respiratory support, digestive aid, and then neuroprotective.
Uh,
Still a lot of studies on that. But the only species really that has medicinal properties is the Magnolia officinalis, which we didn't talk about. But that's really the only one that has medicinal properties, at least in any amounts that would actually do anything.
Interesting.
So the bark and the flowers are both used in TCM, but especially the bark. The bark is the big one. So it's known as Houpu, internal uses, digestive issues, bloating, gas, abdominal like fullness, like if you, yeah, feel like gassy, respiratory conditions, cough, asthma, anxiety, and stress. So it has a mild calming effect, which we saw with the anti-anxiety. The flower buds are called, I don't know, zinniha, and internal uses, sinus congestion, headaches, and allergies, but especially nasal allergy or like nasal stuff associated with allergies. So again, mostly the bark, but flower buds can be used a little bit. The leaves can also be used a little bit, mild antimicrobial, aromatic, obviously. So you can use it in infusions or like topically, but again, the bark is going to be better. I mean, if you have to choose between the leaves or nothing, leaves are good, but the bark has all of these and in higher dosage. Topical uses, things like skincare, so anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, so good for like washing your skin, or poultices, like skin poultices. Okay, so magically, associated with the element water, mostly people are saying because of like emotional depth, intuition, being like receptive to things, the softness. Um, I could see it. Usually, if something is really fragrant, especially something that's not usually fragrant, like not a lot of flowering trees have a lot of fragrance. So the ones that do, I associate with air usually, but I could see the water, especially with like the white flowers. Um, the season is spring, especially early spring, which is when the flowers start to bloom.
Uh-huh.
Planet, I found Moon and Venus. I could see both, especially if we are giving it the element water, then I could definitely see the moon. But Moon tying to like the ancientness of it.
Yeah.
Venus for beauty, softness, sensuality. I could see Venus for this for sure.
Maybe the
And then
moon tied
also,
with all those like gothic kind of, like it's kind of
yeah.
like got something hidden in there. Like there's some
Mhm.
deeper, like it
Yeah,
hides.
yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And then two astrological signs we have Cancer, so emotional depth, protectiveness. Okay. So, Cancer for emotional depth, protectiveness, softness, and Taurus, so like beauty, earthly luxury, grounded growth, things like that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Feelings on this?
No, I feel like that works. That's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, it's good ones. Okay, so tarot, I found two, the High Priestess and the Empress. High Priestess is like hidden knowledge, stillness, things like that. Empress is the Empress we've talked about before. I think you agree with me on this, is like Mother Nature, right? The
Yeah.
Empress is like
Really,
Mother
like
Nature.
yeah, that side of
Yeah.
fertility, abundance, like the side,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah, so very like yeah, I don't know. Very Mother Nature, Mother Earth.
uh-huh.
So I could see both of those. I think that I could see a lot of cards for this one. But yeah, I could see the High Priest. So we've talked about two big associations, right? We've talked about like the the longevity tying to like the keeping secrets and the hidden stuff. And then we've also talked about the beauty. Those are the two things. And so I feel
Yep.
like this is being reflected a lot. This is being reflected in like the planet, in the signs, and we see it again in the tarot. And then chakra, we have the heart chakra and the sacral, again, tying this kind of like loving, beautiful thing with like the earthy aspect. So, heart chakra for like compassion, strength, sacral for sensuality, feminine energy, that kind of thing. So,
Nice.
we're seeing it with twofold all the way through. Lots of goddesses. So we've talked about a couple of these before. Flora, which is the goddess of flowers, which just seems she seems to be associated with any like flowering tree at this point. But remember, like, or it's said that once the first magnolia trees start to bloom, this is when Flora is like arriving, right? She hasn't arrived yet, but she's coming. Like Flora is coming once the magnolia trees bloom. And then we have Persephone, so like returning from darkness into the bloom, especially with the flowers appearing before the leaves. And then we have Guanyin, who is an ancient Buddhist like perceiver of all sounds. I have not heard of her before. I love her. She is like, I mean, from what little I've researched on her, but she is like the divine, like the epitome motherhood. The perceiver of all sounds is associated with her being able to hear anybody's cry. And once she hears somebody's cry, she goes to them. And so that's why she's called the perceiver of all sounds, is because she's like, when you're crying, she's the mother coming in to like nurture you and love you and tell you everything's going to be okay, kind of
I
thing.
love that.
Yeah, beautiful. So associated with compassion, mercy, gentle strength, like the mother, we're not talking like mother bear energy here, but like the put your head on my lap and I'll stroke your back while you cry kind of
Yeah.
thing. So, and then the magnolia in Chinese culture is often associated with purity, feminine grace, which we can kind of see in this like mother figure. And then we have Brigitte, which is associated with early spring emergence, and Freya, which is beauty, sensuality, and like strong strength, like the powerful femininity. So magically can be used for like emotional calm, nervous system soothing. So this comes from the like anti-anxiety compound. So you can use it for like calming your anxiety if you're trying to build up emotional feelings of safety, grounding when you're really stressed or feeling overwhelmed. Magnolia is a good one for that. And then we have the protection, but like a gentle protection, right? We're not talking like rose bush thorns protection, but like
Yeah.
very gentle motherly protection. So protective barriers against things like emotional overwhelm, external negativity. Again, not like fierce protection, like I need to protect myself right now, but just like I'm going to continue to let things through, but I want a little bit of a safety net for things that shouldn't be coming through.
Nice.
Heart healing and compassion. So, magical uses of like healing grief, reopening your heart, especially after a period of hurting, self compassion, which everybody knows I love, quiet, like inner healing work, things like that. And then we have the feminine power, right? Embodied softness. So magical uses like claiming softness as a strength. Like knowing when you need to be like the lion strength and knowing when to have the like nurturing, loving mother strength and bringing in that like softness that's associated with the strength. Connecting to like your feminine identity, whatever that is. And I talked about this in the beginning when I talked about how like I don't really consider myself very feminine, but I can like Magnolia just pulls that out of me, man, and I really can feel that way. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's beautiful. So healing like the soft equals weak narrative, like
Uh-huh.
feeling that you have to always be really strong because if you're not strong, then you're weak, and like healing that. And then obviously we have the ancestral connection, the memory, the like keeping sacred knowledge, the witness tree, things like that. So connecting with ancestors, doing anything with your lineage, things like that. And then we have go away. Threshold work. So like again, the flowers bloom on bare branches before the leaves come out. And so navigating these like transitions where you might feel like you're not ready, but it's gonna happen, so you better fucking get ready, kind of thing. And so like bringing in the softness and the support that's associated with that. And then also like a little bit of releasing. As we talked about before, it's like this soft releasing. It's not like gnarly and intense. It's like very breath work, I think would be a good thing to do with this. Like holding petals during reflection or like breathing in the magnolia scent when you're doing something soft and gentle like meditation or breath work. And that's it.
I love that. It's amazing. I love magnolia. You know what? Magnolia is like my son's favorite tree. It's
Really?
all over John's neighborhood. It's amazing.
Oh,
I know.
yeah. I
Uh,
love it. So beautiful.
I know. He loved that tree. Thank you so much for telling us all about magnolia and like and share below. And we will see you at the next Ditch Witch Diary.